feel I might not get any volunteers for that. So I'm going to be really humble and choose somebody. So because everybody has had a chance to practice already, yeah? Just teaching a word. So very quickly, would it be possible to teach your word to the group very quickly? Very easy.
Into somewhere? Like, for example, when you are late for the classroom, so you sneak into your classroom, okay, without the attention from your teacher and your parents. So, have you ever sneaked into somewhere? Sneak into somewhere and ask you where did you sneak into, and then when, okay, and like what situation you should sneak into somewhere. So okay, the next step is model. So I want to say the word sneak. So I will ask you some questions. So for example, when you go home late, do you sneak into your house? Or you just knock the door and your mom opens the door? So if you are late, to go home, like your mom will shout at you because you are a girl, you are supposed to be home on time. Okay? So, can you make some example with the word sneak? So you sneak into the classroom. So do you like to sneak into some places? Do you like to do that? No. So this is not really a good, a positive, wording. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Team. I think it's really important. I think you did the right thing there. I think it's really important to teach what we call the connotation of a word. Is it positive? Is it negative? Some words, like table, it's not about being positive or negative yet. A lot of concrete nouns, of course, not about being positive. But things like abstract nouns, verbs, sort of adjectives, adverbs, often you can always put them in a positive or negative column. sometimes one of the mistakes people make is they do understand the meaning of the word, but they don't understand that actually it kind of has a negative meaning. And they use it in the wrong way, trying to be positive, for example, and it doesn't work. Because whether a word is positive or negative is often quite important. Yeah. Sometimes words over time have changed their connotation. So for example, the word fantastic. Is it positive or negative? Positive. Well, 100 years ago, the word fantastic was often used in a negative way. Often used in a negative way. It meant unbelievable. I don't believe it. Or it's unlikely. Yeah, and it's not a very good idea. But the word has changed meaning over the last 100 years or so. So it's like now it's a very positive word and it has a very basic meaning now. It's just been it had a much more interesting meaning 100 years ago. Okay, so I think that's really important. There's one other thing I was just mention. You know when we drill language, with teenagers, we have to remember that a lot of your teenagers do not like making mistakes in front of their classmates. Is that true? Yes. If a teenager, this is often, especially the younger ones, if a teenager makes a mistake, say you're teaching the word sneak, and say one of them says snake, then all the other kids, and you go, snake. Everyone else goes, ah. Yeah? It's a horrible, and that poor child never talks again. The best thing we can do is drilling. Do it with your class, because it's a very confidence building thing. So, okay, everyone. Which way? Sneak.
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 Okay, now, you're going to say it again, but this time you're going to whisper it. Okay, this time you're going to say it and you're feeling very happy. Sneak.
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 This time, you're very sad. Sneak. Sneak. You're angry. Sneak. Sneak. Alright, so you can do drilling in a lot of different ways. You can put emotion into the drilling, makes it a bit more interesting. Or, if you want to bring it down a little bit, you can do it in small groups. Yeah, this group here, okay, this group here, but they're not actually asked to stand up and do it by themselves. Because it's a very scary thing. And pronunciation, remember, it's really hard. It's easy to make a mistake. Very easy. They need much more practice together. You can say it to your partner. Say it to your partner 5 times. Sneak, 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 sneak. Okay, then your partner, sneak, sneak. It's just practicing speaking the words out. The more you model it, the more they're listening to it as well, and the more that's going into their head. So do try and make sure that teenagers have a chance to get their confidence up before they have to speak the word in front of the whole class. Okay. So thank you very much for being brave. That was fantastic. Okay. Production. Once we get to the production stage, there's more timing. This is where sometimes we need to let go a little bit and move back and say, experiment. Use the language. Get it wrong. Say mistakes. That's part of learning. If you only focus on being accurate, you don't speak. You must be fluent because meaning comes through fluency. You can make mistakes, but if I can understand your meaning, that's communication. But if your students will only speak if they're correct, then they're not having proper conversations. And then in the real world, they can't keep up because they're thinking in their heads of the grammar they They'll speak, and you can always see sometimes. I see people stopping and thinking, what's the past participle? But that's not a conversation. I'm bored. I want to walk away. I'd rather they used the present tense, or the finishing of the verb and got it wrong. Because I can still understand the meaning. Or for example, yesterday, I go swimming. Is it correct? Can you understand it? Now that doesn't mean we don't correct it. Yes, we correct it. We want them to get the past tense, we need to correct it. But do we stop them? If a child is saying, yesterday I go swimming, I had a good time. If I say, oh, that's wrong, let's just stop. What is it? Go, what's the past tense? Past tense, past tense. Went, yesterday I went swimming. Okay, continue. So you want them to give them the confidence to speak. If I understand them, I let them go, and then maybe I go on board and I go, past tense guys, past tense. Because this is a problem. Even at intermediate level, a lot of students very naturally fall into using the present tense too often. Forgetting articles, prepositions, wrong prepositions. But does it actually challenge understanding? Often it doesn't. So it's a very interesting question about how often we stop our students. I would rather someone speak to me in correct English, but they speak to me English, than have perfect English but not use it. Because they're like people inside and they won't use it. So we need to give them more responsibility. We need to be monitoring, going around listening. Often I'm going around and I can hear common mistakes. Okay, yeah, none of them are using the past tense. We're talking about a story that happened last week, not one's past tense. Okay. And then after we finished, the feedback and the correction. And I'm like, like 3 or 4 sentences on the board that I know that are really correct. But I'm not going to say, this was your sentence and it is wrong. Because again, her development has just gone back 2 years. She feels terrible. I'm just going to write her, I'm not going to say whose mistake it is. But I'm going to say, yesterday I go swimming. Okay guys, you can help me correct it. Yesterday I went, yay. Yeah, and we do that, and we correct it, and we just get them thinking about using correct English. So production is where it all happens. Production is the most important stage of your lesson. Production is where the main thing what happens. Production is where you say, the aim was for them to talk about holidays. And in that activity, they managed to do the activity and not use any of the vocabulary and not talk about holidays. I failed. Or, yes, they all use the word tent. They all used it correctly. They used at least 4 or 5 of the words I taught them. They talked about personal experiences, so they showed they understood the meaning. Brilliant. I've just met my aims. Very brilliant. So things like this. There's a lot of reduction activities and solutions, yeah? And it usually comes at the bottom of the page after all the practice. And it will be simple things like this. Work in pairs, think about your ideal school, and write a short description using have to and don't have to. For example, I have to wear a uniform. I don't have to wear a hat. I have to be at school by 8:30. I don't have to have lunch at school. Yeah? Looking at that. So that's where you're bringing the language into skill of speaking. Yeah? And it's real, it's kind of authentic, because school is where most of the rules happen. And have to is all about rules. And one of the most difficult things is teaching have to and don't have to, because of course it's not the direct opposite. So getting children to realise that don't have to doesn't mean you're not allowed, it means you have a choice. It's quite a difficult thing. But getting them thinking about that in the context of school is very useful. So production is lots of free activities such as role play. And then we do do that with the dialogues from the textbook, or they can write their own. You know, you are a teacher and you are a naughty student. You're going to write a dialogue using, you have to do your homework, you know, etc. And have a dialogue, role plays. Problem solving, give them a problem and say, okay, one of the nicest things I used to do a lot of projects, and that can come into problem solving as well, where you say, right, what is your ideal school? Invent it. You're going to work with a partner? What is your ideal school? Do you have to wear uniforms? Do you have to be there at a certain time? Do you have to be polite? And they can make it complete dream, complete fantasy, but they're using English to do it, and they're running much more interested. And you can still focus on the language you have to or don't have to. Okay? In my ideal school, you don't have to wear a uniform. You don't have to be there at 7 o'clock. You have to eat chocolate all day, etc. And lots of language games. Also, anything to do with language games, vocabulary games. You know, write down as many words as you can about holidays. You've got 1 minute, but you're using your imagination, some sort of production activity. Okay, this was great. My little last thing on lesson planning. Do use the teacher's book to get ideas for the lesson. And the lesson aims are always connected to the outcomes or the can-do statements in the student book. Yeah. So the teacher's book is full of tips and great ideas. And it will tell you, I will say this, the teacher's book usually says, use the student book in class and a workbook for homework. But some teachers like to bring the workbook and use it in class. Again, it's totally up to you. A lot of people like me like to do the workbook for homework. Because I think it looks a bit boring. They do enough practice in class in the student book. But they need a bit of extra practice to remind them of the language. That's nice homework. But again, if you want to use it or you need to use it in class, you just need to think about how to integrate it really well into your lesson. And you need to look at the teachers and students' websites for extra ideas. If you go to the websites for solutions, there are all sorts of interactive language games that might make homework a little bit more interesting for students. Sometimes it gets a bit boring for students to always go into their workbook, page 19, exercise 2. If we could say, hey, internet, because I know that most of my students are on that computer all afternoon when they get home anyway. So if I can give them a couple of language games to do on the website, much better, much more interesting. Just to mix it up, make it a bit more interesting. Okay. We do need to make sure that there are enough activities in your lesson which are not just about everyone looking at the book all the time. Yeah? I know today I'm talking about the course book, but however good the course book is, it's boring if it's all will be used and it's all will be looked at. Yeah? We need to sometimes say, the best moments in my class are shut your book. We're going to do something else. Yeah? But I want to use the course book because it gives me a structure, it gives me a way to give the practice activities. But sometimes the production activities in the course book, they're very good, but they're a little bit repetitive. Yeah? Because you've got to remember the space. A course book has to be about this big, yeah? If you did lots of really fun production activities, you'd be walking around with a book this big, like a dictionary. So they do tend to make those activities quite short. So that's why sometimes I prefer to have my own ideas. You know, like invent your idea of school, like write the rules on the board, etc. And we need to go away. But a lot of those extra ideas are in the teacher's book. Okay. Students' website. They can do crosswords, all sorts of things. And it's all using exactly the same vocabulary from the units that you've been teaching. Yeah? So it's http://eot.com/students/solutions. You are right, people will say that you can't check that they've done it. You are absolutely correct. You have. But just sometimes it's nice to do. Some of your students will do it on a Friday afternoon. It's sometimes nice to say,